Greetings, fellow Insomniacs, and welcome to Insomniac Gaming Theater. I'm your host, the Crazy Player. Greetings, Tenno. So you decided to download and try a Warframe, perhaps by clicking on the referral link in the description of the pinned comment below so you can get 7 days worth of double affinity. And so you watch the cool intro cinematic, and then you get to this screen, which is where you have to choose your Warframe. And so Warframe presents you with a choice with not a whole lot of context, so we're going to take a moment and talk about your options here. The first thing I will say is that all of the starter Warframes are perfectly fine. Choose whichever one looks most interesting to you. You can mouse over the abilities to get an idea of what they do, although admittedly these stats probably don't mean a whole lot to you right now, but at least gives you a general idea of how the Warframe functions. That said, I do have a couple of recommendations for you. If you are going to be joining a clan because a friend of yours said, hey, I play Warframe, come play it with me, we'll go and do all of the stuff together, then I would suggest taking Mag as your starter. Of the three, Mag is in a very, very good place right now, and while she's not particularly difficult to farm, she is the one that is furthest into the game of the three starter Warframes. And she is quite powerful. She's in a really good place. Her abilities all work really well now. When I first started many years ago, she was a little underpowered, but this is no longer the case. In addition, her passive can actually be very helpful when you first start the game and you don't have a companion. More about companions in another video. But it says that nearby items gravitate towards Mag for easy collection. This gives her a limited amount of vacuuming up items, and as you get further and further into the game and need more and more resources, this sort of thing is extremely useful. That said, there's a reason why I said, if you have a friend who is going to invite you into a clan, which is like a guild, it's the same thing, then take Mag. If you do not know anyone who plays Warframe and you just randomly saw a video and were like, ooh, I want to start playing Warframe, then take Volt. Not only does Volt fill a few niches that no other Warframe does, he also comes from clan research, which is why if you don't have one already lined up, he might end up being, of the three starters, the most difficult to acquire. Because if you don't have a clan, then you simply don't have access to him. If you can find a clan, and it's not that difficult, I will freely admit, lots of clans are recruiting, plenty of other content creators have clans that are completely open recruitment, then getting Volt is not very difficult. He comes from clan research, all you need is to pay some credits and copy his blueprints and then build the Warframe. It's not very difficult. But he is absolutely contingent upon having a clan. Now, I'm not going to get too far into the weeds as to what the niche things that he does are, but amongst the various things are, he has a passive where if you run along the ground, you build up damage, and this can be useful in some areas where you need damage and there are no other sources for it. In addition, his electric shield has a unique interaction with some later game mechanics. I'm not going to get into it for spoiler reasons, but his is literally the only thing that interacts with those mechanics. And he is a good nuking frame. He does lots of damage. Mag is also a strong nuking frame. She can kill everything on the map without too much difficulty. And Excalibur over here is a good all-around frame. He has good survivability, he does damage, he's a very good choice. So really, any of them are good options. I'm going to choose Mag because I think she's in the best place right now, but choose whichever works for you. Now we're going to go through the entire Awakening tutorial, which is the first set of missions until we get our ship at the end. Sorry, minor spoilers. And then the next video in this series is going to be doing the Forest Prize quest, which is an entire quest about learning how to play Warframe. start here and then look for that video. It should be linked in the description below or in the card at the end of the video. So we're going to take Mag.
I see the Lotus has tried to wake you. Pity she's too late. You're my prize now, Tenno.
Also, I gotta say, the graphics are so much better than when I first started playing this game.
We are taking this
many
one
moons
with
ago.
us.
What has he done to you? I can't lose another Tenno. I'm surging your Warframe's power systems. Quick, use your power.
In this
Defend
opening area, we are going to, in this little opening bit, we have unlimited energy to use our first ability. And these guys have almost no health. So Mag's first ability pulls enemies towards us and puts them in a pile so that we can easily hit them. They will, however, get caught on terrain, if they can. So it's kind of a meme in the Warframe community about how much DE Steve talks about lighting, but dang, the lighting in this game is so good these days. Anyway, before we leave this room, we need to talk about a few fundamentals. So we're going to go into the options menu. And we're going to go into customize key bindings. And we're going to find hold to crouch. Now, this carries over my key bindings from my main account because they're stored on the computer for all of my accounts. But you want to find hold to crouch, and you want to put that someplace where it is easy for you to get to, because you will be using this quite a lot. In addition, you want to take sprint/dodge and put it someplace that you can get at, but that is far away from where you are going to be hitting regularly. Because there are a few places where you absolutely have to use this. The rest of the time, you don't want to. Next, we're going to put sprint someplace that is relatively easy to get to, but again, you don't need to have it immediately at hand, because we're going to want to turn sprint on at the beginning of most missions and then forget it exists. As you can see, I have it on control, and then you want to take roll and put it someplace that is about as easy to get to as hold to crouch. As you can see, I have it on alt, which is right next to my spacebar, which is jumping. You will be using jump a lot, and similarly, you will be using roll pretty often. Now, as for that, everything else, you can figure out how you want to do that based off of what works for you. But those are some things that absolutely you want to make as convenient as possible before we get into anything else. In addition to that, there are all kinds of sensitivity. There are all kinds of menu options in here. I'm not going to go through an extensive list, but one thing I will say is if you feel like you need to look for something in particular, there is a search option in here, and you can do things like voice, and that will bring up stuff under audio. The in-game voice, I strongly suggest disabling this. Almost no one uses it. Motion blur. Let's turn that right the heck off. Do not like. Film grain. We're going to go ahead and turn that off. Do not like that either. I'm going to adjust some of my settings, and then I'll be right back with you. So here's a setting you're definitely going to want to look into. Character highlights, enemy highlights. I strongly suggest turning this on and then setting this to a color that is easy for you to read and is easily identifiable. We want it to be, I'm going to say, about 30 to start with, and then you can turn it up and down as needed. There is also an ally highlight. I find this is problematic in the larger scale because it applies even when you're not in battle, and that can really mess up the way the game looks. Trust me on this. Turn off region chat and turn off trade chat. So now that we've got our settings in order, let's talk about some of the in-game movement. So this is walking in-game, and then I have it set so that hold to sprint is off, which means I toggle sprint and we just start running. You definitely want to do that. It's in the settings. You can just type in hold to sprint in the search bar, and you will get running. So that's the first rule of movement in Warframe. Never walk when you can run. The next thing is, if you are moving in a direction and then you hit the crouch button, you will slide. So that's the second rule of movement. Never run when you can slide, because the sliding is faster than the running. And then if, while you are holding the slide button, you hit jump, you will get a bullet jump. You also want to slide before you hit the ground, because if you jump high enough, you will get a hard landing. So you want to be sliding. Here, let me show you. Hard landing. That'll stop your movement. So that's the next rule, is never slide when you can be in the air. And then you can add a roll in to get you extra distance. There is also a double jump. Spend a little bit of time in this room while you're not being shot at, mastering these fundamentals, and eventually you will get good at the game. Don't spend too long in here, but get a general feel for the flow. Alright, so we're going to move on to the next section, which is we are going to select a weapon. Wow, look at this lighting. This is so good. Sorry. So they present us with this option of picking up a melee weapon. We can either get the bow or the Skana. Regardless of what Warframe you chose, pick the bow. It is absolutely, unquestionably the better of the two weapons. It has better range, it has a better moveset, and it does more damage. Now, both of these, you can purchase the blueprints from the market later and build them. So, both of them are valuable. So, we're going to take the bow. And also, I would point out, if you decide that you don't like a particular one, maybe you're feeling obstreperous and you want to take the Skana, until you get to the end of the mission, you can come back here and swap. But trust me on this, take the bow. Now, you'll notice I turned on enemy outlines, so now they really stand out. So in the early game, we're going to spend a lot of time attacking. There are a bunch of different attacks that you can do with a melee weapon. This is a basic strike. You can chain a few of these together. This is a sliding attack. That's a sliding heavy attack. It does bring you to a halt at the end, which is a little not great, but this is a normal heavy attack. There are air slams, which is you're in the air, you aim at the ground, and you will end up, if you're aiming sufficiently downward, you will end up dropping onto the ground. That's the basic version. That's the heavy slam version. In particular, the ability to do that can also be a very good movement tool. So, it wants you to double jump. But honestly, you should be bullet jumping everywhere you go. And for a bullet jump, that's easy. You can also either crouch under something, or slide under it. Definitely do the sliding. It's much better. So there are some resources in this mission. You'll notice there's this kind of little flickering around the items that can be broken. Sorry, just admiring the scenery. You can go over or under that particular obstacle.
There's a cache of weapons ahead. Grab what you can.
Now, Tenno do not make noise when they run. So that means you can sneak up behind an enemy and stealth attack them. So this is our second
Tenno,
weapon choice.
Pick up a weapon. You are running out of time.
They give us the option of the Lato pistol or the Kunai. Now, I really feel like this choice is here so that DE can teach us a lesson, and that is that some things are just disappointing, because the Lato is an absolutely terrible weapon. It does awful damage. It makes noise when it fires, which the Kunai do not, and it is a semi-auto weapon, which means you have to click the button or pull the trigger on your controller every single time you want to fire this weapon. The Kunai are silent, they reload faster, and if you hold down the fire button, they will continue to throw until you need to reload. The only disadvantage the Kunai have over the Lato is that the Kunai have drop-off at a certain distance. But frankly, at that distance, the Lato isn't hitting for anything anyway. Actually, the Lato just isn't hitting for anything. So, take the Kunai. Also, thinking ahead, and this is a pro tip for you, later on in the game, the bow, which is my recommended starting weapon, and the Kunai, which is my recommended starting secondary, will combine into another weapon called the Taipido. So, by picking both of them, you are enabling that combo later. You can hold the right trigger on the mouse to aim. You can also just use your
Good.
powers to pull
Extraction
them
point is
together.
up ahead. Hurry before Lord finds out you've escaped.
In the early game, melee is much stronger than ranged weapons, but by the time you get to the mid-game, the ranged weapons should be much stronger. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. So here they want you to learn some movement.
Do you remember how to dash up walls?
So here's what they want you to do, and this is a skill you should learn, which is if you push towards the surface and hold the jump button, you will slowly hop up the surface until you reach the top. You will also, if you are at the right height, grab the edge and pull up. That said, the best way to do this is to approach, crouch, and do a bullet jump. And as you can see, I made that in one jump. And this is with no movement mods of any sort. Yes, there are movement mods. You're like, what even is a mod? We'll get to that. So, by taking advantage of our movement, and if you were in the air, they'll show you this later, but if you're in the air and you aim, you will float through the air. And this not only allows you to get more distance, but also allows you to always land softly regardless of the height. There is no fall damage for Warframes. So as you practice the movement in this, you will find that you can get quite a lot of distance. You see this gap? Not a problem. And that's without even using this. Alright, that's enough showing off for me.
Salvage team, why have you not reported in?
Because I killed them before.
You made it. There's the extraction ship.
Well, that was rude. So avoid these lasers from the sky. I probably don't need to tell you that, but do that.
I offer you glory. Use this.
Evor likes to teleport around. Run over to him and beat him with your stick.
Another dead. My decrepit heart is pounding. This one is stronger than the rest. Knock the area down. This Tenno is mine.
Quick, get to the console and release the lockdown. Do that, and I will guide you to your old ship. It's your only chance.
Alright, now that those guys are dead, we'll release the lockdown.
The Queens want to destroy you, but I need to know more.
So you notice Mag pulled them into a pile, and then we just beat them with our stick. This is going to be a common tactic throughout the beginning of the game if you picked Mag. Volt does more overt damage, but does not pull them together, and Excal moves to them. Alright, time to pick a primary weapon. We have the Paris bow or the Braton submachine gun. Now, both of these weapons are actually really good, unlike our last choice. The question is, what playstyle fits you better? If you are... So, this is a projectile weapon, which means it has travel time. This is a hit scan weapon, which means as long as the little dot that you're aiming through is over the target, when you click the fire button, then it will hit the target. No questions, no problems. If you are one of those people who naturally accounts for movement and weapon and projectile drop in video games and things like that, then the Paris bow is absolutely the weapon for you, because it does a lot of damage as long as you can land the shots consistently and in the right place. Headshots are a thing in Warframe. If, on the other hand, like most people, you prefer to solve your problems by putting a lot of bullets into the air and hoping some of them land, then the Braton is the weapon for you. I'm going to choose the Braton because I like a bullet hose. So here's the Braton in action. It is a fairly good weapon. Also, you see the red barrels? Yes, they explode. We can also still pull enemies towards us and beat them with our stick. These lockers can be opened. You run up to them, you click the interact button, and it will open the lockers. If these are red, they will not open. And if you're red-green colorblind, they do have colorblind options in the menu. I strongly suggest checking them out. Now, the Braton is not silent. It will alert enemies to our presence. But it's a reasonable enough weapon. And headshots are always a good thing. Grab as many resources from out of this mission as you can. when you first start the game, you're going to be dying for them. So this is going to be our first console hack. This is Grineer hacking, which is basically a rhythm game. As the cursor, I guess we'll call it, moves around, you have to hit the space bar and time with when it lines up. And that's the hacking. Now we have to protect the ship until the end of the countdown timer, which is about a minute.
We require immediate extraction.
I will need everyone to see such anomalies.
Tenno, are you afraid? You cannot hide from these old eyes. I've marked you. You will return to me.
So if you look in the upper right corner, you'll notice that we have two sets of numbers. A blue number and a red number. The blue number are our shields. They regenerate on their own. The red number is our health. And that only recovers when an effect tells it to do so. One of the things that can tell it to do so are these little red orbs. If you look in the bottom right, you'll notice that there is a bar that says, currently it says 115. This is our energy bar. Every time we use one of our abilities, it takes a certain amount of energy. Now, you didn't see it because I was standing right next to the guy when I killed him, but we just picked up a blue energy orb that gave us 25 energy back. This is one of the ways that we recover energy in Warframe. It is the primary way in the early game. Alright, so this brings us to the end of the Awakening quest. Next up is Vor's Prize. I hope to see you then, and until then, get some rest. Thank you for joining us at Insomniac Gaming Theater. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment, and if you're so inclined, check out the Patreon in the link down below.